Welcome to a raw riff yap with myself, Caelah, Stanley, and Gabe Mazzano. We are here today to ask some questions that we commonly get, and we're going to go through 10 questions roughly. A lot of the questions we get when people are exploring double, triple, but most importantly, like tech sales as a general whole to break into. Now, we are going to cover them off just as a Q&A style, but my name is Caelah Stanley, and why listen to me? I have gone from being in tech sales for the past 7 years myself, went from an SDR up to a strategic AE. In my last role, I've closed 7 mil US in software sales, so in tech sales before, and I was part of a IPO that got acquired by ServiceNow from Moveworks for $2.85 billion. But I think what condensed a lot of my learnings was I was the only sales rep inside Australia for a Moveworks headquartered based company. And so a lot of those skills I gained over that 5-year period working at Moveworks was like almost condensed in like to what could have been a 10-year career as well. So that's a little bit about me, very much individual contributor, selling lots of software in tech. And then this is Gabe.
Yeah, and I'm Gabe Mazzano, so I have a unique background having served 7 years in the Australian Army, the furthest thing away from tech sales possible, but I made a strategic career pivot myself into a commercial AE tech sales role for SAP, which is a really large tier 1 multinational ERP software company around the world, and did that for a year before pivoting into a business management role at NextGen, which is a software distributor in Australia, and built the cybersecurity business from $4 million in revenue to $100 million in revenue just shy of 4 years in that period. And then I made a move into the largest cybersecurity software company in the world, being Palo Alto Networks. Just finished out 4 years there in a role where I was selling into all the major accounts across the Asia Pacific Japan region. So very much coming from a sales and go-to-market leadership perspective, and then bringing all of that knowledge and expertise now into Double Triple, which Caelah and I co-founded just 6 months ago. We're really helping people to break into tech sales, all level up in their roles as fundamentally SDR, AE, general management positions, and ultimately creating time and financial freedom for themselves in their life. So we bring our expertise, very complementary so, into the program. And in this episode, we're going to talk through the 10 most commonly asked questions of ourselves as people are thinking about making a strategic career pivot or move to break into tech sales.
Amazing, love that. So I'm excited to jump into the first question.
Me too.
Now,
what have we got cooking?
What have we got cooking? So I think the frame before we get into this as well is very much we see tech sales as an avenue to run towards. Tech is getting more and more important in the future, but ultimately it's a great career path to earn lots of money and then set yourself up financially in other areas of your life as well, in really like a short condensed time. So let's jump into the questions. First one is, I don't have a degree and I've never worked in tech sales before. I've never worked in tech. Am I wasting my time?
So sounds like the big objection is like, I don't have the skills or expertise, the education, or really the knowledge in tech. My opinion on that is definitely not a waste of time, because my personal experience is I knew nothing about tech, but I was just really curious and interested in learning about business, and technology at the time. And what's probably worth really debunking for people is it's actually not this unaccessible industry. It's certainly more about the soft skills and the willingness to learn and to have a great career. And I think with that, you don't necessarily have to have a degree or be educated in that sense of necessarily needing to be having gone through 4 or 6 years of education like other roles or industries. It's probably the only industry in the world, the only career in the world where you don't need a degree and you can move into a career and have a great time doing so.
Yeah, I mean, how I also view the lens of a degree, tech sales is getting fancy, the word is fancy, and to be knowledgeable and be really successful, once you get into the role, you start to learn more around the tech vernacular. But I never even saw sales as a industry where you needed a degree. So, at the end of the day, you are selling something. And I think most importantly, a lot of those soft skills are the most things that translate into a sales career, right? And then it really is just the characteristics around grit, working hard and all those things, and hearing no a lot of the times. And if you have a lot of those common traits where you can get back up after failing or something like that, you're going to do very, very well. But I think one thing to highlight around when a degree is helpful, I've been reflecting on this, is of course you can do, the MBA type degrees, but I think a lot of our clients too that come through could have just finished a degree. And I actually think that shows you might not have a lot of work career experience. And so finishing a degree really shows you stuck something out for 3 to 5 years doing a degree. It shows that you can consistently do something for a long period of time. And again, the reward and the grit that you did throughout that degree actually shows more of the characteristics of the soft skills more so than anything. We've had a few clients recently finish college and they've landed roles straight out of that with not much career experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. But to your point, sales is pretty well renowned no matter what the industry is. You don't necessarily need a degree or education. And even for the clients in Australia, you can break in and get into a role if you don't have a degree And if you don't have experience, all the
sure.
connections or the network to do so, it's just like, it's one of the most open-ended industries to break into without a degree.
Yeah. It's like sales is one of those things too, where it's the most in-person raw thing that can happen. It's just how you react to that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so,
Totally.
and I think just to round that out though, if you don't have a degree, you can obviously look to get more knowledgeable around the area. And, you had a really good experience when you're inside one of your companies where they pay for some of it too. And you have those opportunities with like L&D budget, depending what the company's willing to invest into you for your own learning as well.
Learning and development budget can go into more education once you're in the industry. Yeah, and at NextGen, I had the experience where I didn't have any formal education, but I had a lot of career experience from a different career. And so then I wanted to educate myself and get a university degree.
Yeah.
And they funded half of my MBA, which is amazing. So
good.
Super cool.
Amazing. All right, question 2. For people in diverse backgrounds, whether it's like real estate, coming from the army like yourself, potentially like physiotherapy, does that actually count in terms of breaking into tech sales or looking to even make a like career pivot into tech?
Definitely. Everything is transferable. It's all about the skill sets. So I think if you have a different background or history or professional experience, whether it is army or you're a physiotherapy or real estate, there's always so many things that can be taken from those experiences in the past and different backgrounds and jobs to actually transfer into the skill set of tech sales careers. Because also tech sales careers have different types of jobs. It's not just a black and white, this is the one thing, the one type of job. There's actually like a big continuum of different tech sales roles.
Yeah, and I think where people get confused, like I'm going to just talk about Bryce, one of our clients that landed a role at HubSpot. It's like he was a physio, and when we started, because what we do with clients is like we break down like what their current characteristic skills are, and we had like Natalie, a nurse, just recently land a role, and like 2 things that draw out to me is actually like I spoke with Bryce and talking about how he's going to position himself, and I'm like, first of all, when you're a physio, you are having to like manage time, like sessions, like you have to be on time, get the client out, you have to, as actually physio, you're trying to book them in for a second, third session. So it's like, yes, you're not like hard selling, but you are trying to get that next treatment
outcomes.
You're getting outcomes. And then like updating the notes, like, they have
Yeah.
their own clinical things like the CRM as a sales rep. And then, one of the questions I always crack up when we're, chatting with Natalie around how she was positioning herself is some of the common questions you might get when coming into tech is like, how do you deal with numbers and data? And, Natalie as a nurse was like, I basically look at data all day and like someone could literally die in my job. So I'm like, I'm good with handling that stress. And like, you can tie that then to like sales stress in terms of carrying a quota and things like that. And it's all relative to how we react in terms of what's challenging in the moment as well.
Yeah, totally. And even just like the real estate sales agents, they're bringing a lot of great directly transferable skill sets because they're used to selling assets to people in a face-to-face setting, working 6 days a week. We've had a lot of real estate agents come into the program, and it's actually helping now to translate and build digital skills, which is also something that we're really big on in terms of AI skills, digital skills, and then just like anything in life, it's just always developing and learning in terms of those capabilities.
And when we talk about like heaps of people that come through Double Triple obviously come from a sales background, but it's probably more B2C sales. And that's actually a great skill set to have because I think people that go from B2C into B2B, they're used to one much more high velocity, but they're used to like getting that outcome at the end of each call or at the end of each transaction. So when you get into B2B, yes, the sales cycles are longer, but those people actually do a very good job at like getting the next meeting every single time as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. All right. Question number 3. Do I have to start as an SDR or can I go straight into an AE role?
Great question.
I'll take that first then. So I think what's really cool about me and Gabe, and when you join Double Triple in terms of like expertise that you're getting is I was very much, and Gabe was an individual contributor too, which could be like an account executive typically in the world of tech. But that was very much my lane for 7 years in tech. And Gabe was very much more like sales leadership in her role. So you don't need to start as an SDR. We have like many clients that we can pop them up here as well for you to go back and look at the case studies as well. But as long as you have definitely transitioning into an account executive role, you would probably have to have had sales experience in some capacity. All right. So then it also then goes into maybe you're not going to get a role at like this tier 1, like a ServiceNow or Salesforce out of the gates, but you're absolutely going to be able to land an account executive role at the right size of the company of like deal sizes that you can demonstrate and talk to that you've done in your other sales role as well.
Yeah. So to answer the question, you don't have to start as an SDR, but like everything, we really profile and help you to understand what your transferability, what your background looks like, and what are the opportunities where you can move into an AE role directly out of the gates. I think those are really good examples. But generally, there's also other roles like customer success manager. There's account management roles, which is a bit of a blend between customer success and a pure query carrying new business revenue sales type role. And so again, it just really depends. And yet alone the overlay with, is it a pure tech company? Is it an IT services or consulting firm? Is it potentially a different sort of business or company where it's tangentially in the IT or the tech industry? And there's lots of different roles around that too, back to the continuum. So you don't have to make a career pivot or break into tech as an SDR by any stretch of the imagination. There's actually a lot of different roles and opportunities out there, depending on the companies and the opportunities too. And of course, most importantly, what you're bringing into it and what your goals and interests are in the future as well.
Yeah, great shout. I think if you have a lot more career experience, being in sort of corporate business settings before, being in service operations or customer support, account manager or a customer success manager inside tech is a great pivot. And a lot of people go through that experience as well, and then maybe they want to go as an account executive once they've sort of broken in after 2 to 3 years.
I'm going to ask question 4 to you, Caelah. Get your perspective, because this is actually the most commonly asked question a lot of the time for people considering coming into the Double Triple program, and I think it's really valid. And I'd love to bring out our different experiences around what the day-to-day looks like here. So the 4th question is, what does the job actually entail, and what does the day-to-day look like in a tech sales career?
So for the first 2 years of my career, say as a sales development representative or a business development representative role, I literally every single day, my whole goal was to look at the new leads that came in, whether it was from marketing, whatever the case is. They've just been to some sort of event, they've gone on our website, showed like warm intent that they're interested in our product. And so I would have to call people, and we had a set number of, we had to do 60 dials per day. Like that was a metric we had to hit. There's also like really cool tools out there now, like Aurum, where it's actually, you can put in like 50 numbers at one time. It calls everyone out. So it's like, there's a lot of AI and like efficiencies in how you're doing that. It's not like super manual. Setting up like outreaches and sequences. So you have to like work the art of getting good at copywriting, which is really important. And so you're reaching out to people on like LinkedIn or email to get them to book a meeting. But the whole objective of every single day I woke up was, how do I book a meeting for my account executive? And so every month I had about, it was like 11 or 20. I can't remember if it was 20 and a quarter or 11 each month, but I had to book those meetings every single month to basically hit my quota and get paid extra commission on top of my base. So I would also have weekly meetings with my account executive to look at the patch of some accounts that they really wanted me to target, and I would work really strategically with them, because like the most important thing in enterprise tech sales is like, you don't want to piss off a customer and get a bad rep. So you have to be quite strategic how you're doing that outreach. Now, when I got into more the BDR function, from moving from a sales development representative role, it was, I didn't look after any leads that came warm or warm intent inbound. It was like pure white space. And so like that, actually I had to book less meetings, and it was a lot harder to book a meeting. But again, I had to work with the marketing team of, most tech companies have like account-based marketing. They invest money into targeting accounts. And then I was almost working the accounts that weren't getting any budget or funding to them as well. So all in all, days looked pretty like similar as an SDR, BDR. It's almost like you would separate each hour to like a calling block, email block, follow-up block, and then preparing notes for my account executive based on the meetings we had upcoming.
Yeah, I'd say you're really good at structure and making sure every day you're really dialed and doing the most important thing and working with the team. And you have the experience across SDR, BDR, where you're doing the inbound qualification as well as the outbound qualification, right?
Totally.
New opportunities. So there's a bit of a distinction there too, if people might not be familiar with the SDR versus the BDR, what the difference is, and it can look a little bit different.
Totally.
I'll jump into my first experience when I was a commercial AE coming out of the army that first year. Now, going into an AE role directly was really about speaking with customers. Now, I remember at the time it was 2018, and so I was going into the North Sydney office at SAP, and my patch also was across the Victorian, sort of in the Melbourne CBD for Australia, if there's any US folks tuning in. And so a lot of my day-to-day would be going into the office, understanding where I'm sitting in terms of managing a quota for the year. I broke that down. I remember having a whiteboard on my desk of the quarterly target and my like quarter to date, and it was just like really publicly there, and everyone would come over and be like, I've never seen a rep publicly put their quota up on the desks in the open office plan and see where you got quarter to date. And I went over to like the manager's whiteboard and wrote up like, it was like winner's circle, which is the president's club thing, and I would like draw up on the whiteboard like Gabe going to president's club. The day to day, similar thing, I would be coming in as an AE, and I would be looking at my book of business, my target accounts across my territory, seeing what follow-ups I needed to do, any new outreach. And I was a really big team player. I have like an activation skill. So I would actually be proactively reaching out to like our SDR, BDR function, which wasn't called that at the time. We had like more of an inside sales capability. Every week we would jump in and do like blitz days, sort of mini blitz days together.
Yeah, like Tuesdays were always blitz days.
Yeah. And so we like jump into the office and just be like cold calling. And there was just like so many funny moments with that, just like calling people out of the blue. And then a lot of travel too. Like I would travel a lot from Sydney to Melbourne, go on site to see customers, take my manager in, and just always look to progress the deal. And I think like there's a classic thing in sales where it's like you're either creating opportunities or you're closing them, doing something in between that. So it was just like every single day, just dialing that in and building a rhythm of the business around that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember your first deal that you closed?
Yeah.
It's just such a special feeling.
Yeah, always, yeah. Pedders, the
Insurance?
automotive.
Oh, yeah.
The automotive mechanics. And I always remember, I was actually selling into HR for SAP SuccessFactors, and Lisa Korn was the first persona, and like she's still like a friend to this day. She gave me a LinkedIn recommendation. Must have been a good rep at the time. I could probably call her now, actually.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's super cool. What about you day to day when you became an AE?
Yeah, so I think you highlighted it too. Like every Tuesday, we weren't allowed to book meetings on Tuesdays because it was like full blitz day.
Yeah.
We had to call customers. And before, obviously, just randomly calling people on a Tuesday, you had to do the preparation the day before of like potentially sending them an email or having like scripts that you're kind of going to draw onto if you're calling into a certain territory or segment of an industry. But very much like you, very dynamic. I think what was interesting about my role, I had all of APAC region. So I had to learn pretty quickly that it was very exciting as a new rep. It's like, I have all these opportunities. And then when you have like anything in life, if you actually have too many opportunities, you just actually get lost in like where to actually structure and focus. But it was always about I didn't actually have an SDR, BDR for first 2 years as a commercial account executive. So I was doing like still reaching out to clients. I had a lot of autonomy in my role planning marketing events. So we had like a budget every year. And because I was the only rep here, I would have to like arrange, executive dinners or lunches, and we would get execs there, and that would be my way of making pipeline. So I would get them all into that room. I tried to get like our CEO to fly over to host that event with me. They would come in the room, we sort of talk about what's happening in AI, obviously MoveWorks, and then I would basically go through a sales cycle with all those people. And so every quarter, it's like, as you mentioned on your whiteboard, you're trying to break down your annual quota into a bit more quarterly chunks. And then it could have been, doing cybersecurity reviews, legal reviews, business case, a lot of discovery sessions. Like a lot of the time you are doing so much discovery with different stakeholders and different personas inside the company. But most importantly, there's actually a lot that goes into internal meetings to like make sure your manager's up to date. How can they help the architects that come in, security, engineers, to help progress those deals as well.
Yeah, super cool. You were really good at selling through the customer. You would get customers in the room and just network with them, get them to do sales job for you.
Yeah, it's actually a very good point, because I think we all have our own ways of selling. And I would say I'm not like on the highest end of like communicating publicly, but I would get everyone in the room. So then if a customer and a prospect would be in the same room, it's like they're talking to themselves to, get the good experience out of what MoveWorks is doing. And it's much better from them to hear from a peer-to-peer of how the software's going than a sales rep sort of pitching the product.
Yeah, you're like orchestrating always, but particularly with customers too.
I would love you to share what your day in the life looked like as a sales manager.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, managing a team is like a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
But when I moved to NextGen and I was fundamentally in like a business management role and into like general management, I feel like it's sort of the next frontier after being like an AE, in the sense where you're responsible for revenue. It looks really different if you're within a vendor versus like an IT services, or you have your own company. But I always knew that I had the leadership strength coming out of the army. And then I wanted to build the commercial business acumen, which is why I moved into tech sales. And then being the general manager for the cybersecurity business at NextGen was very much like bringing all of that expertise together in that leadership sales management perspective. And then also at Palo Alto Networks, being across the APJ region too. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, just from an outsider too, just reviewing Gabe, like I obviously lived with Gabe when she was leading a team. And, it's like so much more like people management.
It's all people management. Yeah. And so this is like the classic thing of like when you're an AE, it's like, choose you can be a great IC, individual contributor, or do you go the management path? And it's like it's not for everyone. Being an IC is not for everyone. Being a manager is not for everyone.
Totally.
So yeah, it's horses for courses, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of like sales management is a lot about, you've got now a responsibility for individual people carrying quota, and you've got a larger territory or region that's got responsibility up into the company level, and then just making sure, you're entrusting individuals with hitting those outcomes, and how do you get the best out of those people. There's a lot more like learning, development, coaching, skill set that goes into that. And then of course, like managing up, and also I'm on the line for reporting those numbers up the chain as well. So just a different ball game.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I mean, just running double, triple now in terms of people management, it's just like I feel like things just aren't always in your control in the day. Like things just pop up.
Always.
Really dynamic in those things.
That's cool. All right, I'm asking the next question. Next question for you, Caelah, number 5. This is a really good one. If the tech sales role has an OTE of $200,000, what am I actually getting paid?
Great question. If it's a 200K OTE, typically, if you're looking at an account executive role, it'll be most likely a 50-50 split. If it's 200K OTE as an account manager, it could be like a 70-30 split. So it's always dependent on the title and then like the total package. And so it can be split very differently. Typically as like SDR, BDRs, it's going to be like that 70-30 split or 80-20 split. An account executive is going to be 50-50 split most of the time, which means 100K base. And then if you hit your quota of closing 500K, you'll get an additional 100K. Then you'll also make more than that if you close more. And then obviously when you get into the business side of things, like sales manager, I'm not even too sure that even changes again because it's not really 50-50, is it?
Yeah, I think it always depends. Like the OT is always going to depend the split and the responsibility. I think the key is like there's always going to be a total package, which is the base, the commission, and there's other equity, benefits, super, etc., depending on where you are in the world. But fundamentally what you get paid is going to be based on performance always in tech sales. So to answer the question, what am I actually getting paid? You can understand your total remuneration package, and then the upside, the commission, the upside, and the accelerators and overachieving is going to come on you hitting quota, achieving your outcomes, and performance at the end of the day.
Yeah, and this is not like financial advice, but like everyone that gets into tech, it's like always live off the expenses of your base. It's like, very important to know your monthly expenses, and what you get paid as a base every month is like how you would live. And then everything on top of that in terms of commission is where you can invest that into like property or stocks or things like that. And then that's how you can sort of live not stressful around trying to chase a paycheck as well.
Totally. All right, question 6. How do we know if a company is worth joining? I love this because it's like you can look at it in different ways. I think there's a lot of unknowns for people, but you can definitely take a look at what categories of technology are booming. Cybersecurity and AI, you can't go wrong with, but there's also very, very strong niche players or emerging disruptors. Like AI being applied to niches, being healthcare or legal is like the big ones. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with like the platform players or what we like to build frameworks around, which is like mission critical software, which can be like selling a must have, not a nice to have. Taking that more practically, though, you can also profile the tech companies by understanding, are they growing? You can run public searches, especially if they're like public companies, or if they're private, have they recently raised funding, and just looking to right size that. For public companies, knowing if they're growing 20-30% year on year plus, and there's good headcount growth and, there's a lot of customer love, you can look for that. And then if it's like a private company, funding rounds, are they above 50 mil ARR, 100 mil ARR, and are they showing hiring signals and big growth? And just knowing that it's like a really critical area of technology that businesses need to invest in and ultimately drive outcomes to the business, whether that's reducing cost, reducing risk, increasing revenue, increasing productivity.
Yeah, and you have to be super realistic. Like in a career in tech, like your whole life can change within 7 to 10 years. Like you can actually be, if you're part of a public, IPO, if you're part of an IPO or getting, acquired, we have friends in the industry that have made like consistently 1 million on like a 200K package because they've like fully smashed their quota. And so you have to be super realistic of like where you're coming into the industry, and then acknowledge maybe you're not going to work at the best company, or looking at if it's a private equity company, pre-IPO, and just like understanding that world. But I think ultimately when you look at roles I would rather work for an incredible manager that has done the thing over like the most booming product potentially as well. So there's all those factors to play in, and ultimately we all want to work in a place where it's like safe, you're learning and you're earning. And so it's like if you can do all those three things and understand that through the interview process, I think that is a great company to work at when you get into the industry.
The best way to know if the company is worth working for is to ask us.
Amazing. All right, so question 7, how to handle when roles say they want 3+ years experience. I think let's apply this to more like SMB commercial AEs. A lot of the job descriptions, it says, I want 2 to 3 years experience.
Yeah, I think take that with a grain of salt. I have more disregard when it says 2 to 3 years experience required, because it's usually, they are going to be posting job descriptions and looking for candidates like quite generally. And so I believe when you have the right profiling, strategic narrative, and you know how to really position yourself from a point of strength around why you match that role and that opportunity for the company, you can really get around the requirement or what can be perceived as like hard requirements for 2 to 3 years experience. I've seen so many people not even attempt to go for the role when they see that, but I think that's the wrong approach. Mm-hmm. So there's other signals around the job description outside of that one line that needs to be considered than just completely disqualifying it for yourself.
Yeah, and I always put the lens of like, obviously I've we've been together 8 years, but if you're like looking for, I don't know, a new partner and it's like, I want all these qualities, and it's just like you pick this like perfect unicorn. It's like there's like pros and cons to everyone, and it's gonna like miss things. Or when you're like, even when we're applying for jobs internally at Double Triple, it's like, I don't think there's like the perfect candidate. And so when you get into the interview stages, you can really sell yourself on the other qualities of things as well.
Yeah, on the other end of the spectrum, there are companies and domains of tech that are really notorious for needing a certain level of expertise, but that typically will come from roles where they're advertising like enterprise account executives.
100%.
For example. So that's like a whole nother ball game in terms of seniority. And again, there's a big continuum with roles, which we have that subject matter expertise to be able to demonstrate. But to your point, doesn't necessarily be the one thing that disqualifies the whole opportunity.
Totally. And I think especially in the IT service providers, but like literally Podium is a great example. We literally did an on-site session with them, and they do not hire people that have come from tech.
Yeah.
So we've had 4 people placed as an account executive there before. Yes, they've had some sort of account management sales experience, but they have not come from the tech world. All right. Number 8, how long before the money actually changes? So I'll start with this. Is very much, you always ask clients, what are you willing to do to make $300,000? And so I think that's very different for everyone. But typically, like in your first year of tech, you could be like as an SDR, it's like that 80K to 150K that you could earn. And then as that account executive type role, it can be 100K to 250K probably in your first year. And then it really is like if you do well in that first year, it can just like jump quite quickly after that.
Yeah. So is the question like how long before the money actually changes your life? Or like,
Well, I
has an
think
impact on you?
Some
like
people definitely fill out forms joining Double Triple and say they want to make $1 million next year.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
If they have never been in tech before, I think you have to be realistic.
You're coming
around.
from 60K and you're expecting to earn $1 million next year, maybe not.
Yeah, it's like the classic, like this is not an overnight success situation. And I really think, the first, like anything in life, the first 1 to 3 years are like the building blocks. And then after that is when you really start to, make the 300, 400, 500K $1 million.
Yes. I think you can definitely come in if you're earning between 60 to 80K and get yourself on a 120K package, for example. Coming in, you're already earning 100 to 150K. There's definitely a world that exists where you can get a role for 150 to 300K, depending on your experience. So, but I think that there's like a big impact to people's life when you get above that 150K salary. And to your point, I always love the rhetorical question of if you could earn $300,000 in the next 3 years, what would you be prepared to do? Because the roadmap is there for you to do so. It just depends on what you're willing to put into it and what you can see for yourself in the future, which a lot of it comes down to mindset, personal growth, professional development, learning the skill sets, and again, being quite strategic in your career to actually roll out that plan for yourself. We can help you with that, but there's a substantial impact that can be made. $200,000, like I didn't even know there was $200,000 that existed at one point. When I heard someone in the industry was earning 300K, I was earning 150 at the time. I was just like, what the? I need to get myself into that position. And then it's not abnormal to know that people are earning $600,000 as a package, $1 million package. They're earning $1 million plus by having great careers, and it just compounds over time in your career.
Totally. It's like when you're on 150 and I was on 60K, I was just like, how do I ever get there? Like, I could not imagine even earning 150. So
crazy.
It was definitely where life changed. Just making 120K a year for me, that is when life changed for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's like not even the 500K. It was literally 120K.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Okay, question 9. Is AI going to wipe out these jobs before I even get in?
No, I honestly, once you get into enterprise tech, these deals take many months. They're multi-million-dollar deals, they're 500K deals. And in terms of any company wants to generate more revenue. And like, how do they do that? And especially in like enterprise tech, it's by humans selling the software, going on site to see customers, like navigating all these complexities like legal security to deploy this software. And again, like more and more times, tech companies keep coming out that they're hiring more and more sales reps.
Yeah, for sure. There's, I think, a lot of hype about AI is going to take the jobs, which is just completely over-sensationalized. It's like so much more nuanced than that. Personally, I believe that the sales role, function, career is probably the last thing to be taken by AI. Yes, there's a lot of like PLG, like product-led growth type companies in the world. If you don't know what that is, we can link video or share more about that in the future. But the whole art of sales really comes down to working with people and organizations, ultimately to deliver some sort of outcome or solve a problem. And inevitably there is an engagement with people that needs to happen. And so that's like far much more of a soft skill centric approach to ways of doing business. And I just think, it's not as black and white as like AI is going to take my job and there's going to be no jobs in this industry, because it's like the furthest thing away from the truth.
Yeah. And regardless of the industry, Like, honestly, who cares what industry you pick? But it's like, if you get good at sales, how else do you make money, like generate revenue? If you want to build your own business one day or whatever the case is, it's like the most highest leverage skill you could possibly have.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question.
All right.
Let's go.
How to succeed in the role once you actually get started. And this is just like, how do you succeed in tech?
How do you succeed just in anything?
Yeah.
Do your best, then do better. And once you've done better, do better. I always like the continuous learning. Was it everboarding?
Yes. It's our favorite topic at the moment.
For sure. Once you get the role, personally, I like to think about well begun's half done. Find the quick win as early as possible. We've had some really cool success stories with our clients where they would have been advised by their manager coming into the new role and into the company, hey, our expectation is to close the first deal by month 3. And we thought, scrap that. We're going to close the first deal in month 1. That's happened a few times for people, which is like amazing. And people are getting huge wins. And so how to succeed is always about understanding what does success look like for the role? How are you measured? How do you hit your KPIs? And always starting with early momentum and the mindset and the performance that comes from that. But also, I'm a really big champion of always be learning, continuous development, actually build a professional craft around it, keep learning, educate yourself, treat it like a real career, just like you would in any other domain, and just keep learning and developing and keep growing.
My main takeaways to really be successful in the role is you need to internally sell. Like, there's internal politics in sort of, you know, the world of getting promoted, earning more money, whatever the case is. So it is like making sure that you're seen doing things that are helping your team members. Like, this role is literally a team sport. And so like, you want to be sure that everyone wants to work with you as a great sales professional as well. And you don't come across as like a dick or just like, you know, I'm the only one that closed a deal, because so many people go into helping you close these deals. So I think that's really important. Ultimately, it's just so short-minded to think if like a customer says no, it means like not to keep nurturing them, like not to be like petty about it if they come back and say no, because it's just like, you don't know when they're actually going to need the solution. The new hiring, like a new C-suite team could come in. Anything can happen. You know, there's the term like, you know, bluebird deals, and, you know, they can just pop up for you because you've nurtured them 3 years ago, for example. And so it's not really a bluebird deal, because it's like you did the work so many years before. And we strongly recommend like trying to stay in a company for like 4 years, because like the longer you go into the company, the more pipeline, the more relationships you build. And I think it goes a really long way in leapfrogging that next role.
Love it. What do you think made you successful in the role? What was it? Was it internally selling?
I wanted to go above and beyond than what my title or role said.
Yeah.
And I was extremely motivated by our founding team, and especially like Barvin, our CEO.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think, you know, if I think back, we discuss it a lot, what motivates us. I don't even care about lots of external validation, but I do love when like, you know, like Barvin, our CEO, will say like, great deal, or like, well done in that presentation, right? Like, I'm representing him, the brand. And I like to be seen as someone really successful can put trust in me to do bigger and bigger things. And so if I really look back to it, I was definitely motivated by learning and earning. And so like constantly every single year, I felt like I was learning at MoveWorks, and I also was earning more, right? And so in my mind, I'm very metric driven. And so those kept increasing for me. And so I just kept doing more of the things that were working as well.
Yeah, love that. It's also the recognition of like, you've done a great job because you do go above and beyond, and like you care about the professionalism of your work and the quality of your work.
Totally.
And so that's motivating. I was successful because my mindset in whatever role I did in my career was, how do I be the best at this role? How do I be the best commercial AE? How do I be the best business manager? How do I be the best captain in the army? I always had the framing of like, what does the best look like? And always strive towards what that was and look to achieve those things. Similar thing, like going above and beyond, putting the work in, working out what success looks like, and just having all my days engineered to perform in a way that was celebrated as like, this is really high quality work.
Also, to round that out, I feel like in any sales role, you can put a lot of internal pressure on yourself, which comes naturally, and especially if you're like type A or whatever. But I felt like I did a very good job at like communicating upwards.
Yeah.
So my managers and even like my managers' managers knew where a deal was at or where the red flags could be. And I never hid where there was risk in a deal closing.
Yeah.
And so what that did was that always my managers felt like it was a loss if we did lose the deal. Like our whole team felt it was a loss. I'm like, what could they have done more? How could they have helped me? And so you want to bring like the whole chain that's looking after that whole opportunity with you on board, than just like going very isolated in that, and then you lose a deal and then they're like, what the fuck happened to the deal? And you're like, you just like missed all this communication that could have happened throughout like a 3-month sales cycle. And so I think that really helped.
Keeping people informed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Super important.
Very cool.
Amazing. Well, hope you enjoyed this sort of style of a YouTube episode. And if you want to know more questions, hear more about Double Triple, our experience, pop any comments in below. We read all the comments. We'll get back to you all. And we appreciate you tuning in. And if you don't mind liking and subscribing, we really appreciate you tuning into the channel and learning more about tech sales.